This week's episode of the Sports Initiative podcast is brought to you by Scoop. Here's Pippa to tell you more.
Hi, my name's Pippa. I'm co-founder of a new sports nutrition startup, and I'm here to tell you about my company, Scoop. Scoop is a new sports nutrition brand in compostable pods. Over the last 18 months, we've developed the first pod-based nutrition shaker that allows you to make an easy, mess-free fitness shake in 3 simple steps. Pop it, shake it, drink it. Scoop's unique system offers many benefits. You can change flavours and supplement whenever you want. It's fast, easy and mess-free to prepare. Our pods are easily transportable so you can take them on the go. And it's 100% compostable. Our first blend, the Workout Whey, is a whey isolate protein drink made from only natural ingredients and is available in 3 delicious flavours. Want to try Scoop? You're in luck. On the 22nd of June at 1 p.m, we're launching Scoop via Kickstarter. By supporting Scoop on Kickstarter, you can save up to 45% on your order and will help us make Scoop a reality. Follow us on Instagram at scoop_en, and for more information, check out www.scoopnutrition.es. Thanks.
A fantastic product, so make sure you get involved. On this week's episode, we sit down with Great Britain high jumper Tom Gale. He discusses his late specialisation and how he thinks this has benefited him at an older age, his mindset going into competitions and why he thinks he does so well on the dreaded third jump, as well as his challenges in overcoming a recent injury. As always, if you enjoy this podcast, please be sure to share it with friends and family as we're continuously looking to grow. I hope you enjoy. Right, so Tom, first of all, appreciate you jumping on. I know we've spent a bit of time going back and forth and cancelling on one another and stuff, but are you all safe and well and kind of good after your recent competition?
Yeah. Firstly, thank you for having me on. Sorry, I've had to rearrange so many times, but I've been really good recently. Had a bit. So as we'll probably talk about, I had a bit of an issue with my knee after the competition. It's been about 10 days since then, and they're getting loads better. So I've been really good. Thank you.
Good. No need to apologise. You're way busier than I am, so it's more important that you found time to find time to do this. So, for people that maybe haven't come across you before or aren't aware of your background, you just want to talk through kind of what you do, I guess, as a profession and what that entails, I guess, from a kind of weekly or monthly basis.
Yeah. So I am a British high jumper, currently ranked number 1 in the rankings. I've been doing this for probably about 8 years now. I'm centred up at Bath Uni, and I've represented GB 2-3 times at a junior level. Haven't quite had my senior debut yet, unfortunately, due to injuries. But that's kind of a very brief background. Those outings have included a bronze medal at the European under-20s, and then a silver medal at the European under-23s.
Cool. So I think probably the easiest question to start with is why high jump? What drew you to the sport? What made you want to get involved with it in the first place?
So it was never something I really, when I was growing up, it was never something I looked at and said, yeah, I want to do that. What actually happened was year 7 and 8, so 2011, 2012, I was entered into there's an area sports competition that the schools in my area kind of get together up at Bath University and just compete in athletics events, or have like an athletics day. And my teacher just threw me into the high jump. Both years came second behind a guy called Dom from St. Lawrence. The third year, I was recommended by my teacher, Miss Marshall, to try out at the county championships. So I went through that process. Actually ended up winning the competition, which I never expected. And I was asked by someone named Caroline Howarth She's a coach up at Bath Uni, and also she's got 3 sons which train up there. I was just asked, you seem to be quite good at this. Notice you haven't got any affiliation. Would you like to train up at Bath Uni? Me kind of thinking, yeah, sure. I've got nothing better to do on a Tuesday and Thursday. I'll do something a bit social. Just started training, and it's really just kind of snowballed into a career, if I'm honest. It's never something I looked at and said, yeah, that looks really sick. Let me give that a try. It's just a case of I got not thrown into it. I just thought I'd give it a go. I happen to be quite tall, quite springy, and then it's kind of turned into what it has.
And did you do a lot of sport growing up? Did you play a lot of different sports before then or not?
Never with a club, but I was always one who, in PE, every single time we do something, I'd always try and make it out like it was the Olympics. I'd always try a little bit too hard doing something. And yeah, so I was, it was never something where I joined a club. Like I said, I just happened to be quite good at sport, quite athletic, really. So I was always out with my brother doing something. And I've got a twin brother, so I've been raised to be quite competitive. We'd fight quite regularly, so competition became survival when we were like 8, 9, 10. So yeah, that's kind of how I've ended up where I am.
So rather than more like structured sport, more just kind of competing against your brother about whatever it was, whether be it climbing a tree or running around the park or whatever that looked like.
Yeah, pretty much. We'd always go, like, every now and then we go out with our mates, play a little bit of football, but I think the main thing was always just going out and playing manhunt, really. So we were always quite active, but there was just a group of lads around the area who'd get together in this like little woodland area near us, and yeah, we just do stupid stuff, really. Just always being outside, a little bit active, and then because so my brother, he was actually. Now I remember, actually, we did do athletics when we were younger. They had like a program up at Bath Uni, which they call 365, which is like an academy. We didn't do it for many years because the main thing they did was running, and we weren't too interested in that. But he was actually better at athletics than I was, so that was quite entertaining. But yeah, like I said, just always being active, really.
And do you think having that background of being more active, but maybe not being in so much organised sports, do you think that that's helped you kind of along this pathway now?
I think it's been more as a positive than a negative. Sorry, purely in the fact that I think if I started it when I was younger, I probably wouldn't be doing it now. I think I was never one to stick to one thing. I was always happy to just do whatever I was thrown into when it came to sport. So yeah, I think if I was younger and I started younger, I just don't think I would have stuck to it, really. I think I got in at a good age where I was just like, it was easy because I was socializing and it was fun, and it was never made anything more serious than just having a bit more fun, that I was able to kind of get into it and let it become what it has, rather than it being forced upon me.
Okay, no, that makes complete sense. And in terms of your growth at those younger age groups, obviously you're quite tall now from the picture I've seen. Is it 6'6", I want to say?
6'4". I'd love to be 6'6", but not quite, a couple inches short.
Okay, so 6'4" now. In terms of you, were you always one of the bigger ones in your age group, or did you grow at a later date? What did that look like?
I was always one of the taller ones, but I was never that. I wasn't that one who just absolutely started off massive. I'd probably be like an inch or two taller than most people. I remember there were a few girls taller than I was at school. And then you kind of get that norm of like year 9 over the summer holidays, all the boys just shoot up. So yeah, I was never much bigger, but I've always been a lot more athletic and a lot more bouncy and springy. I remember there was in primary school, there was a game we used to play called bench ball, and the whole point was you had 2 teams. There'd be one person on each bench on either side of the hall. You couldn't go past halfway, and the idea was you had to throw the ball to the person on the bench. And if they caught the ball, you'd go up on the bench. You have to try and get your whole team on the bench, and whoever did it first would win. And what I would do is I'd get the ball, pass it to my teammates, and I'd always try and be the last person to get on the bench because I was really good at playing defense. So as soon as they try and throw the ball, I was able to jump up and block their shot. So that's yeah, I've always been the crackhead, the bouncy one, the one who just springs for legs.
And so, do you think, obviously, you mentioned there kind of having that 2 year period where you competed and weren't winning, but then once you went through that growth spurt, would you say that's when you started really excelling within the sport?
Um, Not particularly. I'd say when I really started excelling was in 2016. So that was in I think it was October or August 2015. My previous coach, Di, introduced me to my current coach, Dennis Doyle. Um, and I think that was when I really started excelling per se. Getting to somebody who was he has an incredible CV of athletes. He's coached multiple Olympians, um, multiple British record holders. So when I was introduced to him, at first it was very intimidating because, like I said, I'd always done it just very recreationally, and then I could feel the training was a bit more intense. Um, my PB went from 196 to 218 in 1 year, so that was when I really was like, oh, okay, I'm actually quite good at this. So yeah, it wasn't until 2016 where that was really anything I would even take somewhat seriously.
So, what was the jump in the training that you were doing and the detail that was being given to you? What made such a difference to make that, like, that's quite a big jump in terms of
Yeah.
height? So what was the reasoning behind that?
Um, I can't give credit to anyone other than Dennis, really. His technical knowledge of the event is so superior that I think because I didn't start lifting or doing any weights, or I was still only training twice a week, but because he has such a phenomenal eye for the technique, he was just able to look at me, see exactly what I needed to do, and then it really just enabled my springs to go to work. It enabled my body to do what it really could. So yeah, I like I said, I can't give any more credit to my coach. I can't give credit to anyone other than my coach, really.
And so, obviously, for you, that's quite a big transition. You've gone from being in a position where it's more of a recreational thing. You're doing it because you're really, really enjoying it. I'd imagine at the point where you're meeting this guy, there must have been a conversation to say, you could be very good at this. So how did that conversation go down, and what was your thoughts around it when you're then making that leap to a guy who's obviously got multiple world champions, etc.?
Yeah. Um, so I never actually really had the conversation with Dennis. It was more of a case of we just started training. We just, it was serious, but we still had fun with it. Um, and I actually found out later that he said to my dad, even though my PB was 2 meters, he was like, he could make the World Junior Championships this year. And for me, it's always been a case of I was just chasing something. So before I was training with Dennis, there was this guy in my area called Adam Brooks. He's still jumping now, but he was, I was jumping like 180s and he was jumping like 195, 2 meters. So I've always had something to chase. So as soon as I got better than Adam, the next thing was to chase the World Junior Championship. And, we never had that conversation of, what, I could be really good at this. It was just a case of, as soon as my focus changed from one thing to another, I just kept moving with it. I just kept putting the work in. And, it's like I said, I don't think the progression was forced. I just think because we let it happen and we made sure it was still fun, that's kind of why I've been able to stay as competitive or become as competitive as I did.
And so how do you manage that? Because it seems like, obviously, in this conversation, a big thing for you is making it fun, which I think is a really healthy thing to have as an athlete. But obviously, like you said earlier, against your brother, you want to be very competitive, and you do have that competitive element, which you're going to naturally as an elite athlete. So how do you manage that in terms of making it fun, but also kind of getting the serious side and competitive side out of it as well?
Well, I think it was almost like just two really well fitted pieces from a puzzle. It was almost just fun for me was being really good at the event. It was, getting to the point where I can turn up to any competition and just say on the day, if you want to win, you have to beat me. So firstly, I was really enjoying the rate at which I was progressing. I was enjoying having people around me who were better than me And it was just the fact that I was almost being given these really new fun toys, just like, oh, you get to go to British Championships now, you get to go to the World Junior Championships now, you get to compete against Robbie Grabbard. And I think that it was just made really enjoyable because I was progressing so fast.
And then in terms of like your family and stuff, obviously you mentioned there that your dad had a conversation with Dennis. What support did they provide you with? Did they ever talk to you about whether it was fun or whether it's too much or what your goals were? Because like it seems like there you're quite goal orientated and saying, I want to beat this person, I want to do world champions. Did they ever discuss this with you, or is this something that you kept to yourself and just internalized?
Yeah, we would have conversations for sure. So my dad was always the one who would drive me to and from training. We'd always sit around the dinner table and have a chat, and it was never a case that they'd sit me down and have this really serious conversation saying, you could be really good at this, you need to try it. The pressure was never put on me. Or no, there was never a point where they put too much pressure on me. It was always just a case of, maybe we'll start cooking a few healthier meals. We'll make sure you're eating a bit more around training time. So they were really supportive in the fact that they just wanted to make sure they enjoyed watching my progression, obviously, because seeing your kids succeed is an amazing thing. But I think the main point and the main reason I was able to progress, I've said it a few times already, is my progression was allowed to happen. It was never forced to happen. There was never any more pressure put on me than I could handle. So I was allowed to grow rather than being forced into being something that and then being made into something I didn't want to be.
I think it's a really interesting point because that support that you got from family there going, oh, maybe we'll just change your dinner timetable or whatever. They're putting all the groundwork in for you to be successful, but without kind of explicitly telling you that, which I think, that's a really good family support network to have.
Yeah, for sure.
So I guess moving forward, then obviously you've got to a point where you're with Dennis, you're realizing that actually, you've jumped a lot higher. You got British champs around the corner, all that type of stuff. What was your progression after that? What were you looking to once you start going to those types of competitions?
I think I just wanted to be competitive in every competition I went to, because I'll jump into 18. That made me competitive in my age group. That meant that I could turn up to the under 20s and maybe the under 23s, and I could put in a performance that would get me a medal. What I wanted then was to be like, okay, I want to be able to turn up to British Championships and I want to be fighting for a medal there. I want to be able to turn up and be, fighting against Chris Baker or Robbie Grabbard or Mike Edwards, who are, the two of them aren't really about anymore. One of them's still jumping, but he's jumped for a different country. Chris is still about, but yeah, I just really wanted to turn up and just be competitive everywhere I went. And because I'd had such a rapid trajectory the year before, it was very easy for me to believe that, to say, I'm not training any more than I have been. I'm putting in more effort when I'm at the training sessions. I'm being more deliberate in what I'm doing. But, it's not exactly like I was training like a world-class athlete and I was still being able to put out these results, which could one day make me one. So that was very much for me what drove me. I just wanted to be competitive because I knew that 2015 and early 2016, I didn't so much know what I was capable of. But then 2016 into 2017, I was like, I don't know what I'm capable of, but in the sense of, oh, this could go a lot further than I ever thought it could have.
And how old are you at this point when all of this is going on?
So when I went to World Junior Championships, I was 17. And then 2017, I was 18 when I jumped to 30.
Okay, so I mean that's a very quick turnaround from someone,
Yeah.
Essentially at the start of secondary school, not really having any interest in doing the sport, just kind of did it because you found out you were good at it, to then obviously kind of by early sixth form jump in, in European championships and all that type of stuff. How did you manage that rise kind of for you as a person? You've probably gone from having, I guess, a group of friends that you would play manhunt with, etc., to then obviously going, well, there's probably a little bit of a focus that I need to place here because I'm doing really well with it. How did you manage that transition as an individual?
I don't think it was something I needed to manage. I think it was actually something that made me more confident and more social and it made me feel better about myself because of the fact that I was doing what I was doing and doing so well at it. It kind of gave me a bit of, I don't want to say clout. I kind of had respect from other people because of it. So a lot of people, they kind of get to that stage and they're like, oh, I felt a bit more pressure to perform. For me, I think I'm just a very laid back person. I think, I let it come to me. I didn't force anything. So it was just a case of, I was always looking for ways to improve, but, it was all about turning up to the competitions and just doing what I could. It was never about saying, oh, I have to do this. I have to get this medal at this competition. I just let it happen. And because I believed so much in my ability and what I could do, a lot of the time it did happen.
And have you been able to maintain that outlook now you're becoming more high profile? Because obviously you're now going, one of the top ones in the UK in terms of your rankings and what you're able to achieve height wise. But then obviously you're looking at potentially going into world championships or Olympics or that type of stuff. Have you been able to maintain that outlook of not really focusing too much on external pressure?
So you said about kind of managing it now compared to before. I think I still kind of maintain, I very much still maintain that mindset, although it has shifted somewhat. I think before it was very much a case of, oh, it's going to be a really cool competition. I'm going to have a lot of fun. Let me just see what I can do with this. But in the positive sense of being like, oh, let's see where I can go. I think now, because of the fact that I'm putting in so much more work, I'm working harder in training. I'm being more deliberate with my technique. I'm sleeping better. I'm eating better. I think now I don't have to so much say, let me see how I can do today. I can say, let me put in the performance I know I'm capable of. So it's almost gone from, it's gone from luck to me being more deliberate with it. It's just a case of, because I've put in the work, I know that when I want to put in the results, I can put in the results. If I'm having a bad day, I know what I can do to fix that. So it's almost like when I was younger, I just had to see how it went. Whereas now I can go and I can make the result happen.
So where's the confidence in that result come from? Because that is, that's a mind shift really of going, well, we'll see what happens to, I'm pretty confident that regardless of what happens today and how I'm feeling, I can get the result I need. So where's that confidence come from?
I think it's just the results. I've always been very good at, say, like third attempts, which a lot of people crumble under the pressure. I've always known what I can do. So a lot of the time when I believe I can do it, I can put out the result. And I think for me, because I've been able to go to these big competitions, I've been able to put in these performances. And now I'm putting in the work that I know I should put in. I've kind of taken the game from being something I play to something I kind of control. It's something I can kind of I can manipulate my pieces for when I want to, because I put the work in, I know what I can put out. And I think a lot of that, I kind of sacrificed going to uni. And to a lot of people, that's like, oh, well, that probably doesn't make a lot of difference. But when I was younger, I was somebody, I loved to go to parties. I loved to drink. I loved to just have a good weekend with my mates. But because I sacrificed that, and I've now spent the time to put the foundations in, when I'm stronger than I've ever been, I'm more technically aware than I've ever been. It's enabled me to just have the best mindset I've ever been in. because I put down them foundations that what I output now is so much stronger than what I did before.
It's just really interesting what you're saying there about the third attempt thing. So why do you think you're so successful at those third attempts?
Because before, like I said, I'm so laid back. When I was younger, it was just a case of, so when I'm in the competition, I just say, F it. That's for me. As soon as I've got one good one in me every competition, but I just say, F it, and all the pressure just feels like it's gone. I know that it, because I've kind of I'm very good at taking it into my own hands and being like, yeah, let me do this now. That's me now. That's my mindset now, that because I put the foundations in, I can control what result I get. But when I was younger, it was just a case of, I'd say, it. And then all the pressure just felt like it was gone. I was just like, let me see how this goes. I'll just do this properly this time. And, I just think I'm very lucky that because I've been so laid back when I was younger, rather than now putting pressure on myself when I do that, it's enabled me to just actually go, I'm actually good at these. I actually excel on my third attempt, so I don't have to worry about this.
I think that's really interesting. So I saw a clip, I think earlier today, it was talking about Kobe Bryant. And he was saying the reason he didn't get nervous at the end of games was because of the preparation that he'd done. He said,
Exactly.
I'm not doing something that I'm unfamiliar with. I've done it 1,000 times. So it's just kind of repeating that skill. It sounds like for you, your kind of mentality started off with this is just fun. We'll just see what happens. Like, it is what it is type of deal, to now being in a position where you've got a body of work behind you, both in terms of competition situations, but also in the preparation you're doing, where you're really confident that actually I know that I can produce when I need to.
Exactly. I think that's a really good way of putting it. Like, I've done at this point, I've probably done in 8 years, about 120 competitions. And in each one of those competitions, I've probably done about 20 jumps. And that's still only like 1/20th of the jumps I've done in my whole career. We really put a huge focus on the technique. You don't need, in this event, you don't need to be strong per se. Obviously, you need to have strength in the right places, and you need to have a solid foundation. Like, when it comes to your hips and ankles, being strong in those areas is really important. But compared to an event like shot put, where you need all the strength behind you in the world, high jump is technical, and we are good at this event because we were born with these exceptionally long Achilles tendons, which have now enabled us to do what we do. So obviously you need to be strong, but it's about the technique. And I have executed that technique thousands, if not tens of thousands of times. I know what I've got to do. I've competed hundreds of times. I've completed thousands of jumps. So I just go out there and do what I've done 1,000 times. It's just a different stadium with the same pressures, or more pressure, but I've done this before. This isn't new to me.
No, it makes complete sense. So one question is something that really intrigues me with events like yours, which is, after you've done your jump, and say, for example, either you failed when you get into the higher end, or you've jumped and you're waiting for everyone else to kind of go through their setup and their jumps. What do you actually do during that time? Because I imagine you can't stay under high arousal in a sporting context for that entire period. So what are you actually doing in between time to get yourself prepared, ready for your next jump?
So a lot of the time we're just kind of sat there watching the competition. That's obviously pretty much everything we can do. We can't bring our phones in. It's not like you're going to sit there and read a book during the competition. I mean, some people have, but they're a rare few. Between jumps, I think we're just thinking about technique. We're just thinking about what we did right or what we did wrong on the last one. And we're just thinking about what we're going to do on the next height. And a lot of the jumps start as soon as you stand on the check mark. A lot of competitions will just be sat there chatting to each other. We're for high jump and pole vault and long jump and, the field event, you're out there for like an hour and a half, 2 hours. You're not going to sit there in silence. So a lot of the time we're just chatting to each other. But if you watch really closely, what you'll see is we go from chatting to each other, and as soon as we stand on the mark, it's almost like those videos where you see someone laughing and their face just drops. That everything you've been thinking about and joking about is gone. So I think for me, as soon as I stand on my check mark, that's kind of me. I'm in the zone. One thing you learn as a field awarener is how to turn on and switch off, just flick of a button. You really learn that you can go from having a laugh with someone to being on your game. It takes seconds. That's a skill that you really do have to learn in this event.
So did you develop that from just being in competition, or was there any particular strategies you were provided with for that?
I think I just learned it over time. When I was younger, I remember there were a few. I've only ever no-heighted twice in my career. One of them I was younger, and it was because me and this Adam Brooks guy I brought up before, we just spent the entire time chatting. I didn't have that ability to just switch it on and off at that point. So I was chatting. I stood on my check mark, and I was like, "Oh no, what am I doing?" I wasn't switched on at all, and I ended up no-heighting that competition. So yeah, it's very much just a skill you kind of learn over time, and I think, again, the more work you've put behind you, the stronger the foundation you put behind you. While I'm in competition, I kind of run off aggression. I mean, I'm kind of thinking, I'm gonna beat you today. So as soon as you feel that aggression, it comes from the fact that you've put this work in. So I'm not gonna give it to you today. I want this win. I want this result. And yeah, I think that's a skill you learn, but something you almost earn because of the work you put in.
And during that time, do you critique like your rivals around you and say, "Oh, this is why they hit the bar on that one," or "This is the reason why, they excel during this phase of it," or do you just focus purely on what you're doing more than the others?
I watch other people jumps a little bit, but I don't think I'll so much critique them. Sometimes if we'll talk to each other in competition when it's a very low level competition, or something not a championship, you'll very much just be like, "Oh, just do this next time, maybe just run a little bit faster, or just say you decelerated on this." You kind of, when you get to this level, you kind of just learn the technique. You know what a good jump and a bad jump looks like. But it's not, you're not trying to coach other athletes. You're kind of just focusing on your own thing. But
you say that again, sorry?
I was just going to say, like, you can see the difference between a good jump and a bad jump. The thing with high jump is it's got to be very fluid. There's a motion to it, and sometimes as soon as you see a disconnect, you'll just be like, "He's not clearing this," and most of the time they won't.
And can you feel that when you're jumping yourself? Can you feel that there's a disconnect and go, "Yeah, I'm going to hit into this one"?
You can feel the disconnect, but I don't. I think because of, again, the foundations, those ones where I think I'm not going to clear it don't really happen anymore. They're very far and few between. Or sorry, few and far between. But yeah, you kind of iron out the kinks the more you do it and the more time you spend on the technique. But yeah, sometimes you'll be like, "Oh, I've messed this up, so this I'm gonna have to work a bit harder on takeoff."
And then for you, obviously, that takes quite a lot of self-awareness to be able to do a jump and then kind of critique your own performance for however long it's going to be, 10, 15 minutes, whatever, or 5 minutes, to then go back and do the same thing again. How did you get to the stage where you were able to really home in on minor details and say, "Yeah, this is what went wrong on this one, this is what went right, or this is an area that I need to focus on moving forward"?
So because of the fact that we put what's the word? I'm really struggling there. We put such a focus on technique during training. It very much just becomes second nature. So if my coach says to me, "Oh, you sunk into takeoff," I then know what that feels like. And say I do that 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 more times, I know exactly what that feels like. So as soon as that happens again in competition, I know that feeling. I know, oh, I've done this wrong. So it's just about experience. Is you put the high jump is such a technical event to the point that when you do something wrong, if you're having a normal day where you're not feeling like rubbish, you're not really tired, you will know you've done something wrong and you will feel that, because that fluidity, I can't highlight enough and I can't exaggerate enough just how fine tuned we are as athletes, to the point that we know when I'm jumping, I know what my little toe is doing. Like, the technique is such a focus for us that, yeah, we're not gymnasts, but we're not far off.
So do you work on that then? So say, for example, you're training, and you do a jump, you hit into the pole, etc., and then would your coach go, what went wrong? And then you would present, like, not present back, but almost say, yeah, I did this and this.
Uh, when I was younger, when I first started working with him, he challenged me a little bit and said, "What do you think you did wrong on that?" And then because of the fact it became so natural, rather than him asking, I just say, I did this. It just becomes part of the communication. So he kind of taught me to think about it, and then I kind of ran with that.
Yeah, so I think that's really interesting in terms of the context of other sports. So quite often, like in a football context or rugby context, you get it where the coach always feeds back and never
Mm-hmm.
or rarely gives the athlete the opportunity to say, well, this is what I did wrong. Whereas I think that, from the sounds like you've got a real level of self-awareness because you were constantly challenged to say, what do you think you did wrong? What do you think you did wrong?
Yeah.
And now that's become a process where you're just acutely aware of it.
Yeah, I think that is the sign of both a good athlete and a good coach. I think if you're not being challenged as an athlete to think about your own performance, then there's something wrong there. Because say there's so many competitions where the meeting won't pay for your coach to come out with you. So say you're out there on your own and you can't tell yourself what you've done wrong, you're screwed. You're having a bad day. What are you going to do? So for things like sprints and endurance events, the things you do wrong aren't that they're glaringly obvious, but because of the fact that technique is so important in high jump and say pole vault, you really do have to be aware of everything. So an athlete being able to tell you what he or she is doing wrong and right is the sign of a mature athlete and a good coach.
No, I think it's really good. And I think it's something you've just said to me there. It's, in a football context, for example, could you put in a position where the coach actually isn't on the sideline? So maybe they go
Yeah.
and sit in the stand somewhere and give them opportunities where the players have to solve the issues without any support from their coaches. And it might look a bit weird, but you might bring out more leadership. You might get more self-reflective things, I think.
Well, that's the thing as well. Like say on one, I don't know. I'm not a football fan myself. I watch a bit of basketball, and I know in basketball they run these plays. I'm not sure if that's so familiar in football, but if a player can identify themselves what they are doing wrong, 5 minutes down the line, the exact same thing happens. They know what they've got to do to get that right. They can identify themselves. So I think an athlete, regardless of sport, if you can think for yourself, you're a mature athlete. That's part of the characteristics that every athlete should carry. They should be able to critique their own performance.
Yeah, and I just think it's a really interesting way that it's built into your sport and the interaction you have, which is it starts off in a position where they'll constantly question you, and then it gets to a stage where you can say, I did this, and they might be able to give you a little bit of a tip off the back of that, or say, well, yeah, this and that. But
Yeah.
it's a journey, which is really good. So I think if we move on now to, obviously you mentioned at the start you had a competition recently. Do you want to talk through kind of what the month of training block looks like for you going into a competition like that? What obviously the competition actually entailed, what you jumped, how you jumped during the day, and then what that's meant for you subsequently?
Yeah, sure. Um, So at the moment, I'm in a very odd position. So the way I'm going to explain this is different than what would normally happen, but I'll try and kind of explain what I'm doing now and what I would normally be doing in the perfect circumstances. At the moment, I'm still kind of in the rehab phase. So I mentioned before, I can't remember if I mentioned this just to you while we were chatting before, if I actually mentioned this in the podcast, but I tore my patella tendon last year and had to have an operation because of it. So I'm still on the back end of rehabbing that. I had the operation in July of 2020 and I'm still getting some discomfort. So at the moment, I'm kind of having to train as hard as I can within limits. So funnily enough, I mentioned to you before, I had only had 2 training jump sessions before the competition. And that was since my operation, I've had 4, maybe 5 jump sessions. And the competition was the 5th. It was a bit strange to do that because usually what we would do is we'd be jumping, say, like every Tuesday, and we would do that throughout the entire winter. So normally I'd have 3 months or 12 really good jump sessions behind me, but to have literally 2 or 3 jump sessions behind me was a little bit weird. Going into the competition, it was a little bit daunting. Like I said, hadn't had the preparation I wanted at all. There were a lot of points where I gave a little bit too much in training, and then the knee would flare up, so I had to hold back again. And that's very much been the story for the past few months. But going into competition, I came out, jumped 227, which put me first in the country at the moment. What that does for me at the moment is it puts me in a really good position going into the championships next month, or the end of this month, sorry. The qualification process for Tokyo involves me coming out and jumping. So I've jumped 233, which is the A standard given by the International Olympic Committee. And if I come top 2 at the British Championships, that then means I'm on the plane. I'm part of Team GB heading to Tokyo. So to kind of come out and have such, I don't want to say terrible preparation, because my coach has put in a hell of a lot of work. The S&Cs are putting in a lot of work, and the physios, the team behind me getting me to where I am now has put in a phenomenal amount of work and have put me in the best position I can be for the circumstances I'm in. But it's far from what I would normally do. What I'd normally be doing is, multiple strength sessions, going at like, max intensity. I'll be doing multiple jump sessions and just doing as much as I can to be in the best mindset. But at the moment, it's just like, I'm doing the best I can. It's a really strange one. But to have that behind me and then still be in a position where I'm ranked number 1 in the country, again, that's a huge confidence booster for me. I feel like I'm kind of going off on a tangent here.
No, that's fine. We'll loop back round to a minute. I think it's interesting what you said there. Like, obviously, you mentioned earlier you're a really competitive individual. You're going through a stage where maybe you're not being able to get as many jump sessions in as you'd like, or be able to do the amount of strength conditioning work as you like. So how have you managed that on a personal level? Because if you're competitive, you're probably there going, this time last year I was able to do this, or this time last year I was able to do that. But you can't currently, there would have been a period because of the injury you wouldn't have been able to achieve those goals. So how did you manage that yourself?
That's been a big challenge. I think the biggest test so far has been keeping myself mentally in a good place. So my coach is constantly asking me, how are you feeling? And at the moment, I haven't really been able to tell him because of the fact that the way I feed back to him is how I'm feeling when I'm doing the plyometric and the dynamic training, the stuff that involves being really bouncy. And we haven't been able to do that for long at all. So I've just had to say, I don't know how I'm feeling, but I trust the work I'm doing pretty much, and that's all I can do. The one focus for me has been making sure that I'm eating and sleeping right, because like I said, if I'm putting in this work, I need to make sure that I'm actually getting the best result out of it. So because I've put in this work and I've been making sure my recovery is the best it can be, although I haven't been able to do the things that I would say, these are the markers for where I am physically, I've been able to trust the fact that I'm in good shape, because everything aside from that, I've been doing at the best that I possibly can do. So it's definitely been a huge mental challenge, because I haven't known where I am physically before doing the jump session. and I've just had to say, okay, we're putting in this work, and I'm going to trust that this work is doing what it needs to do.
No, that makes absolute sense. So when we're looking at, if you go kind of pre-injury, if you like, so you're leading into a competition, you know what's coming up. What would your weekly schedule look like? What would you be doing in terms of the types of jumps, level of jumps, the plyo type stuff? In strength and conditioning, what type of work were you doing? If you know sets and reps and stuff, obviously share those if you're able to. So yeah, if you go like, I guess 2 weeks out before a competition, what would your schedule normally look like in an ideal?
Sometimes I'm not one of those who's like really focused on numbers. I'm very laid back with it again. For me, I think it's pretty much saying I go as heavy as I can when I'm lifting, but we do very low repetitions. We don't want to tire out too much. And then when I'm jumping, I just try and go as high as I can, but again, low repetitions. The whole point before competition is to be as dynamic as possible, really get the springs working, and then as long as you keep the reps low, you're not going to tire yourself out too much. And so that will involve some really heavy. We don't do like full range squats because there's no particular point to it. You might be strengthening the muscle, but it's not through anywhere near the range that we work at. So when we're doing stuff like squats, we'll only do half squats. We won't go all the way to the bottom. But yeah, I'll just try and max out like a half squat. And then the week of competition, pretty much just keep it to jump in and the dynamic work, like hops and bounds and stuff like that. It's very much, the week of the competition is just making sure you're in good shape, testing yourself a little bit, and then trying to maintain that and just kind of, yeah, just make sure you're in good shape, really.
So in terms of like what your, I guess, if you want to say one rep max would be on a half squat, what would that be? Do you know?
So that's 270 kg from well, it's not a half squat. It's what we do is we rather than standing up with it going down and then going back up again, you position the bar in the lower position of the half squat, and you just try and stand up with it. And the whole point of that is you do that as quickly as possible, and that will kind of teach the muscles to work quickly, but to contract quickly, but work really hard. So the most I've ever done for that, which I think is called an Anderson squat, is 270 kilograms.
Okay. And I'm assuming you do a lot of work mainly on the lower body rather than upper body mainly?
I have never done an upper body session in my life. I am 90% leg, and that is literally, we work, all of my training is we work on the legs and we work on the core. You know, the core is just as important as working the legs. So that's pretty much all we do.
So, and in terms of core work, what kind of, I imagine it's a lot of core stability. What type of work would you be looking at for that?
So we mix in a few things. We'll do, I'm trying to think now. We'll do like a little ab circuit. Do that a couple of times a week. We'll do some endurance holds where you do a sit up, kind of put your fingers in your ears, and you do 15 seconds down, 15 seconds up. And you do that like 3 or 4 times. They sound really easy, but they are ridiculously fatiguing. And we'll also do some weighted stuff. So that's like Russian twists, going side, working the obliques, going side to side. But yeah, when it comes to core is something you can never work too much of. As long as you can do a little bit every single day, you're on the right trajectory. The legs you can work too hard, but core is just blast away at it. Do the best you can.
Yeah, no, that sounds really good, and it doesn't sound easy, that core thing. So don't worry about that.
I hate it with a passion.
Yeah, I don't blame you. It sounds horrendous. So in terms of like your plyo type stuff, what duration of session would that be when you're looking at doing like jumping over hurdles or that, or box jumps or anything? What type of work are you doing around there, and how often, how long are you doing that for?
So normally we would have 2, maybe 3 fairly intense. Well, we'll have 2 really intense plyo sessions. Those are usually like Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and then Friday we'll have like a medium one, if you know what I mean, like that. Friday we'll do a little bit of gym, and then we'll do a little bit of plyos. in terms of duration, we usually Tuesdays and Wednesdays are the most intense sessions. We're usually in the hall for about 3-4 hours. But the whole reason we're in there for that long is we do really high intensity stuff. We make sure we take loads of breaks as well. You basically just make sure you take a little bit of break between each set so that you're recovered as best as you can. And the whole point of the event is to be as powerful as possible. So there's not a whole lot of point of just doing, say, 5 sets of 5 hurdle jumps and then doing them really close together. Because on the fourth and fifth, you're going to be really fatigued. So the whole point is you take those breaks and then you can put in 100% every single set, and you're teaching the muscles and the tendons to fire 100% every single time.
Okay, no, that makes complete sense. So, I guess moving forward for you now, as you said, you kind of done this competition, which has given you a little bit of leeway coming into British Champs, hoping to obviously get top 2, which gets you on the plane. In terms of the excitement for you, if you were able to seal that and get on the plane, how big a deal was that for you, being able to be an official Olympian going to a Tokyo Olympics?
Yeah, so that will be huge. I think I'll probably cry. I haven't cried in years either. It's just, I think the biggest thing for me is I've had such a difficult year because of the fact that, so last indoors, I was one of the best jumpers in the world. Like, I jumped 233 and I was the only one who jumped 230 as many times as I did. So to do that and then go from not, you're in really good shape, you've got Olympic qualifying, you're going into Tokyo and like, oh, you might be, one of the medal contenders. And then going a few months later, you can't even walk because your knee's been cut open. To go through that and then have to go through that whole rehab process and get to the shape I'm in now, and then still make it to the team on Tokyo would be just huge. Like, it's been such injury is difficult for anyone. So I'm not going to sit here and, give a whole sob story. Every athlete goes through it, but I think any athlete that does go through it and can still come out the other side, it's such an amazing thing. It's such a challenge, and I don't think it was anything I really could have appreciated until going through it myself. So, to kind of go through that and then put the cherry on top to be able to go to Tokyo and compete as an Olympian is just going to be huge.
And do you think if it does happen, all things being well, and you're able to seal your seat on the plane, do you think physically you'll be in a position where actually you're close to your best with the extra time that you've got until now, until when your event actually starts?
I think I can be, for sure. It's like I said, though, because I'm having to do so much limited work, I am stronger than I've ever been in my life. It's brilliant. Like, the work I've been doing is really showing. And the fact that I jumped in my second jump session back, I jumped 225. And then in my third in the competition, I jumped 227. I know for a fact I'm in phenomenal shape. And I've never looked at the bar and felt so confident I was going to clear it. So mentally, I'm in a phenomenal place. But then also, I know that because the work hasn't been there that I wanted, I don't know just how good shape I'm in. So I think, I'm in great shape. I'm really confident that I can make the Olympic finals, and we'll see what happens past that. But yeah, I'm really having to trust the work and trust the team that is, planning this all for me.
And who would be your main rivals for the event? So who are the other people that are jumping particularly well at this moment in time that you think, if you did make it, would probably be the people that are up there with you?
Wait, do you mean champs or the Olympics?
Both. So in terms of champs, obviously you've got that coming up, and then if you would get through that going into the Olympics.
Yeah. So champs, I think my main rivals, probably the likes of Chris Baker, Will Grimsey, David Smith, Joel Kahn. The whole field of British champs there's a wealth of talent there. There are people who, if they catch the right day, I'm going to have to put in the work. I'm going in there as, one of the best jumpers who's proven himself the most. But I know that any one of them could have a great day and I'm finishing second or third. So that's what I mean when I say I've got to turn up. I've really got to make sure I'm on my A game, because it's, as soon as I get lenient with it, that's when someone's going to take it from me. So yeah, it's going to be one of those. Those are the people I'm expecting to put in the best result. But any one of them or anyone in that competition could have a good day. And yeah, it's going to be on an Olympic year. You're always going to get a strong competition. The Olympics themselves, wow. I mean, the field at the moment is phenomenal. I think you've probably got like 13 people over 233, and that doesn't happen very often. Got the likes of Mutaz Barshim or Mutaz Essa Barshim from Qatar. He hasn't had the highest results at the moment, but he's someone you can never count out. He's one of the best jumpers of all time. There's a guy Maxim Nadesakal from Belarus, Brandon Stark from Australia, Gianmarco Tamberi from Italy. The high jump at the moment is in a really, really good place for the number of people over 230. And, you've got a wealth of Americans who always put in a really good performance whenever pressure's put on them. So yeah, I think the Olympics is going to be majorly competitive, majorly competitive.
And in terms of, for you, is there, outside of obviously just being an Olympian and, well, hopefully being an Olympian and being in the event, is there anything that particularly excites you about the whole spectacle itself?
I just want that tattoo. I just want the Olympic rings on my arm. But yeah, I just think I really can't say there's anything I want more than to be an Olympian at the moment. I think, I put in such a phenomenal amount of work that, yeah, that's me. That's what I want to walk away and be able to say for the rest of my life, I'm an Olympian.
And in looking at, like, obviously you've been through a lot of steps to get to this point to where you are now. Is there a particular experience or highlight during that time that you think, really set you on the right path, or something that really stands out to you and say, yeah, that was a great experience that's led me to where I am now?
I'd probably say European Junior Champs in Grosseto in 2017. So I walked in the champs and my PB was 223. I wasn't expecting to medal while I was on the plane, but as soon as I got in the competition, for some reason, I just felt different. I just felt like a different person, a different athlete. And then I came out with a bronze medal, jumped 228. And when I tell you that 228, I was clearing it like this. Like, I had so many centimeters between me and the bar that I looked at that and I said, wow, this is a career I've got here. I've got such a wealth of talent. I just got to put in the work. So I think to have that experience, to have a team behind me that was, they were really supportive of me watching high jump. Yeah, I just think as a whole, that was probably one of the best experiences of my career so far. Also Commonwealth Games, but that's for a different reason. That was more just so because I was in Australia and I had a great time.
Which is as good a reason as any. So what was that feeling like when you're going up on the podium and you're obviously not expecting to medal, but you're coming away with a bronze medal? What is that feeling like when you're able to, I guess, finally digest that?
Yeah, it wasn't as good as you think it would be, because as soon as I thought about the fact that I was on the podium, I was like, yeah, but I'm not on the top step. I pretty much in my head, I got the medal when I finished third. As soon as I was on that podium, I had a whole day to think about it, and I was like, I could have won this. I could have. It was really cool to digest it, but also it was just it was like it was a sweet and sour moment. I just think for me, as soon as I get that achievement, I'm on to the next one. I think I move on a little bit too quick. I can't really enjoy the moment when it's there. So yeah, that's just something I got to learn. But it was cool being on the podium, but not hearing the British anthem was a frustration.
No, I think it's interesting. It links back to what you said at the start, that competition element to your mindset. And that's probably what makes you an elite athlete. The fact that you're like, it's great, I've got this bronze, but actually I want the gold one. I want to be at the top step. Sure.
I'm telling you, I could probably win gold at the Olympics and I'll be like, yeah, but I didn't jump a world record though, did I? And even if I did, I'd be like, yeah, but I could have jumped higher.
Yeah, well, if I tell you what, if you do get a gold at the Olympics, I think you can give yourself a 2-day grace period. I think that will be fine, rather than just doing a 1 day.
You know what? Yeah, you know what? I'll meet you in the middle. I'll take a day at least.
Yeah, that sounds good. Perfect. So, Tom, one last question for me, which is, who is the best coach or athlete you've worked with or against, and why?
I'm going to give two answers. One, the best coach is the coach I've got. Dennis Doyle is. I don't think it's just his technical ability. I think it's the fact that he's molded me into the athlete I am today, and he's put such a focus on making sure that I've diversified as more than just an athlete. I've got skills now which don't just make me a good competitor, but make me somebody who could be very effective in a professional workplace. So he's really made sure I'm a great person and not just a great athlete. And the greatest competitor I've ever been against, no, I think it's probably he's beat me like every time I've competed against him. It's a guy like the Belarusian Maxim Nadeshikar, and I think I'd say he's the best because because of the fact he's always beat me, he's given me so much motivation that it's just molded me as a person as well. I just think the fact that if I had beat him the first time, if I had beat him the second time I came up against him, because he's the guy who beat me both times at European Juniors and European Under-23, I think, the past few years and even the next few years, until I start beating him and I become the better athlete out of the two of us, I'm always going to be chasing. I'm always going to be motivated to be a better and better athlete, because I can't let that sit on my conscience. I let him be a better athlete than me. So yeah, I think because he is so strong and I'm in that field with him, he's made me a stronger athlete as well.
Perfect. Two really, really good answers. And I think it kind of aligns with the common themes that have come out of this podcast, which particularly the competition element for you is a big one. And I'm sure everyone listening will wish you all the best
thank you.
going into the British Champs coming up. And hopefully you get into those top two spaces, and we see you kind of out in Tokyo doing your thing out there. So all the best for the rest of the year. It'd be great to catch up with you again at some point, and good luck over the coming months.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Thanks for listening to the Sports Initiative podcast with me, Michael Wright. Please remember to follow us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram at the Sports Initiative Podcast, and share this podcast with friends and family. I'll see you next week.